And just preface this before we start, this side of the room, you might want to migrate a little bit that way or come over here due to technical things. We have one TV, and Kevin may elaborate or he may not. Thanks,
All right,
Kevin.
so here's the elaboration. We're trying to make the antiquated technology in this room work with a modern Mac, and it didn't work. So we have a cable going to that TV, and if you can't see it and would like to see some really great slides, you probably need to move to the middle of the room, or there's some spaces available on this side of the room with the other tables. So we are going to be hearing from the First Americans Museum today. 2 years ago, the Rotary District Assembly was held at the First Americans Museum, and that's the first time I'd been there. You may remember this. Remember this facility is one that was half constructed for years and never quite got done. And then through the efforts of a lot of people, including James Pepper Henry, who was the first director and is now the director emeritus and is a Rotarian, they were able to get this thing finished. And so we had this meeting. They gave us free reign to go through the museum. I didn't even get to the second floor, and I was blown away. It is a fabulous facility. If you've not been there, you need to go. But we have today with us Shoshana Wasserman, who is the deputy director of FAM. And I said, that's all I know about you. And she said, that's all you need to know. I'll tell the rest. So here she is.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to be standing here, and I apologize to those people that are online that you will not be able to see the presentation, but it is a great honor and pleasure to be here with you today. So I want to thank you for this invitation. I want to thank you for the fact that you have been to the museum, and we invite you to come back and finish that tour. I am from the Muskogee Nation, specifically Tlaptako Tribal Town. And so what I have been with this museum project for 19 years, if you can imagine. So I have been through the journey from the beginning to present day. And so I am delighted to finally be able to stand here with you today and say we are open and welcome all of you to come and visit us. We are at the crossroads of America. If you don't know where the project is, it is right at the convergence of I-35, I-40, I-235, and so truly the crossroads of America. We opened in September 2021. I came on in 2005 thinking we were going to open in 2007. You can imagine my surprise, but we were delighted. And as you remember, we opened during COVID. So that was a very difficult and very challenging grand opening for us. But having said that, we have had over 300,000 visitors to date from all 50 states, 38 different countries, and that continues to increase daily. As you arrive at the museum, one of the most beautiful moments is as you are actually entering into the space, and you are entering into these beautiful remembrance walls that stand about 100, I can't remember the height, but they're just enormous. And as you walk through that, it sets the story for it sets the stage for the story that can only be told here. And that is because it is remembering, we call these the remembrance walls, and it is remembering all of those who began on a journey to Indian Territory and they perished along the way. They did not make it. It also remembers all of the tribes that have always been indigenous to this place, and there are 4 of those. And then it celebrates people like myself, who my tribe was originally from Alabama, Georgia, made that journey on several different waves of removal, and I'm standing here to you today as a descendant of those that came before me. So very important. The biggest structure that you see at the museum, we call it the Hall of the People, and it's taking its inspiration from a Wichita grass lodge. Why did we make such a big architectural move like this? Well, we wanted, when visitors came to the museum, to always be able to acknowledge those who have always been here. And the Wichita affiliated tribes are one of those tribes. Interesting about them, they have always been here. They were forced out down to a place in Texas that you may know as Waco. The Wichita affiliated tribes, their original name was Waco. And so now they are trying to build a cultural center and museum in Waco, Texas, and talk about that journey of those people from here down to there, and then of course back into what later becomes Oklahoma. So this is a really nice video, if you can see this, and this is also on our website. It shows you that this is a national story. This is where all of our tribes were located at one time, all across what we now know as the continental United States. Now you can see all of these different removals that are taking place and bringing us to what is then Indian Territory. And then according to your own trivia, you answered it, Oklahoma is two different Choctaw words that translated means red people. Of course, it becomes the name of our state. This is where the tribes are located today across Oklahoma. And if you look at where that is, you can see the relationship to First Americans Museum. And so now once you see that tribal circle graphic, you'll never forget that that is really representing our reciprocal relationship with all the tribes. This is where our museum sits. It was a brownfield site. Many of you may know it. Oklahoma City Oil Field Number 1, one of the largest producing oil wells in all of the nation. So you can imagine the amount of site remediation and site cleanup that had to take place, you know, in order just to build the museum. This is very special because when you arrive at the museum, the entire project is aligned with the cardinal directions. One of the beautiful moments is when you go and stand out in the festival plaza during the wintertime and you look at that tunnel, the sun sets right through the winter solstice tunnel. In June, we will go out there and we will watch the sun set over the top of the Pham Mound. So it's kind of serving like a cosmological clock. Then when we turn to the east through those remembrance walls, we witness the vernal and autumnal equinox, and of course we see the sun rising in that location. So this just gives you a little, these are events that are free to the public. We welcome you to come and participate at those very special times of year. When you go into the gallery, one of our other large art pieces is our Origins Theater. Many of you may have heard this lovely lady's name. Her name is Jerry Redcorn. She single-handedly revived traditional Caddo pottery. During the Obama administration, they selected a piece of her artwork that was in the White House. So she is a wonderful Caddo and citizen, Potawatomi citizen, and you can see she created this beautiful design. We bought the copyrights, or we paid for a limited license copyright, I should say. And so you can see the outfit that she's wearing there is one of the Pham exclusive products that you can find in our Pham store. Inside this Origins Theater, we have 4 stories that are shared, and these are our origin stories. Many of you are familiar with the Genesis story, right? And on faith, you believe this story, and it shapes your worldview. That is what our origin stories are to us. They're not myth, they're not legend. We believe on faith these stories, and they shape our worldviews today. So one of the first spaces you go into is this 320-degree theater space where you get to experience that. Then as we walk out of the theater, we are on the historical part of the journey. It is divided up into chapters of time. Here you can see Origins to 1830. And it's comprised of many of the things that you might expect in a museum, a timeline experience, and then what we call our value circles. You know, Native people and non-Native people view time very differently. So in the Western culture, we view time very chronologically and very linear. In Native communities, we view time in terms of seasons and cycles. And so you're seeing this circularity in the architecture. You're seeing this circularity all throughout the exhibit design. And then you move into the next period. You can see that the color has changed. So when everything is red, it's a point of pride. As that begins to turn to gray, things are changing. And when we are seeing this very black period, we are seeing the most devastating period in our historical past. And so that is indicated with some of this. Again, there are first-hand accounts of these histories. So this is the very first time that from our perspectives, we have been able to share our histories. And So what you're hearing is very personal stories about removal, about assimilation, about both the tragic and triumphant times in our history. And so it is very passionate. It is very heartwarming, heart-wrenching. And so it is, a place where you are really immersed. If I was sharing a story about my family today, which one of my family stories is actually in this period, this chapter, then that's how you would experience it. Then we come into the third moment of the history, 1907. Of course, it's the state of Oklahoma now. All the tribes are here, and it becomes a very intertribal kind of experience. That concludes kind of the historical part of that exhibit's journey. As we turn the corner, then we begin to get into the contemporary part of the story, and as we do, we look at misrepresentation. How have we been portrayed by others who perhaps have not understood our, cultural life ways? And so this is really where we begin to see all of the things that, we all know, all of the trinkets, that kind of really do irreparable damage to our cultures. Because if you can imagine yourself as a young Native student, and I was really impressed with the knowledge that you all had in this room, by the way. That is not typical, because too often our histories are missing from the history book. A lot of times when I go into communities, they know about one thing, and that is the Trail of Tears, and that's it. And even that, when we think about the Trail of Tears, they think, oh, Cherokee Trail of Tears. But actually, each of our tribes had multiple journeys into Indian territory. And so when we are missing from the history books, and then our children are only confronted with these misrepresentations, you can imagine how devastating and how demeaning that is to our social well-being. And so it is very challenging. Then we go through a whole series of really fun contemporary moments. We look at sports and games. We look at veterans. I don't know whether you know, but Native people serve in the military at a higher rate than any other group of individuals, which is interesting when we were the last citizens of this country. Then we go upstairs. This is the exhibit you did not get to see. This is Winneco, Life of an Object. Excuse me. This exhibition features 144 cultural materials from the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian that were all collected here at the turn of the century by Mark Harrington. And they were collected because it was thought at the time that we would not be here today. And so they were collecting these relics to remember these people that would be gone. Of course, that is not true. What is so spectacular about this is that as you look at these cultural materials, none of these materials were, ever supposed to be in a case, right? These were all made with love, with purpose, for a very specific reason. And we could pull any one of these out of the case today and use them today, by the way. Now, we can't because it belongs to the Smithsonian. But what we did begin to notice in the research is that we started recognizing names. And so then we started doing further research, and we wound up reuniting the descendants of the original makers of these materials. Now, this was so profound for Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian because they learned, number one, so much about their collection. And I tell you, there wasn't a dry eye in the room when you think about holding a material that maybe one of your great-grandparents had or made. And can you imagine that connection that you would feel to something like that? So it was just remarkable. We have now written several different grants, and we were able to conduct about 9 reunions at the time. And so we're going to continue that reunion process. Here you see these 2 lovely ladies with their photos of their great-grandfather, and then that blanket that you see there was the blanket that their grandfather wore. So lots of education going on all across the museum. This is one of our gallery spaces that has changing exhibitions, and right now this is dedicated to the 39 tribes that are in Oklahoma today, so everybody can come and learn a little bit more. We're getting ready to produce a book about this. Of course, the Big Fan Mound. Why the mound? So many of you may be familiar with this, but some may not. We in Oklahoma have the Spiro Mounds, and the Spiro Mounds are it is the mound community that is the farthest west in all of the United States, but these mounds go all the way over to the eastern seaboard and all the way up to the Great Lakes region. And these are like, if you think about kind of the Egyptian pyramids or the pyramids in South America, these are these very sophisticated communities, always built by a river, because we were conducting commerce and trade and cultural exchange for thousands and thousands of years. And so that is why you see the presence of this significant mound. Some of our mounds were used for funerary purposes, religious purposes. Generally, there would be a community of many different kinds of mounds, and that would make up the community. I can promise you that to date, there is no one buried in this mound. So this is our FAM store. One of our missions also is to support Native artists. For far too long, our Native artists were leaving Oklahoma. They were going to Santa Fe. They were going to all these other communities to make their living, and it was our intention to make sure that that no longer was the case. We have a wonderful arts market that takes place the first weekend of December, so mark that on your calendar if you're ever looking for a really fun event. We have all kinds of arts and culture, because while we have exceptional exhibitions, we are a museum about living cultures. And so the way that that gets expressed are through all kinds of contemporary events like the fashion show, teepee raising contest. We hosted the International Canoeing Conference last year. We have singing classes, and what is next? So the one exhibit that we did not get to finish when we opened the museum in September 2021 was our Family Discovery Center. So that is coming next. And if you are one of those who are a flora and fauna enthusiast, every single flora and fauna that is in here, we worked with the Department of Forestry, and so it can all be connected back to our flora and fauna in Oklahoma. This is what the front entrance looks like. Grandma Turtle sits there. She welcomes all of our guests that are coming in. And it was imagined, how many of you remember pop-up books? How fun were the pop-up books, right? You open the pages, the whole page comes to life, you feel like you're a part of it. Well, when you walk into this space, it is going to land you in the middle of a pop-up book story, and you become part of the story. We organize this story according to human values: respect, community, resilience, and stewardship. So we developed all of these different zones of activities that uplift these human values that connect us all, and that's what the whole theme of the place is. We are all connected. So there'll be something to do for every age. This is what it looks like if you're entering from the top. You enter in the top of the treetops, and here we see red-tailed hawk sitting here. And this is a 5,000 square foot space with tons of animals. And what is happening on site today? Many of you may or may not have heard of a project called Okana. This is the current construction. You can see where the FAM Museum is in relation to all of this, all on the river. This will be a 404-room hotel. It will be the largest indoor water park in the region. It will be open this time next year. And this is, like, as of last week, what that construction is looking like. And here's all the water slides that are getting ready to go in. So Great Wolf Lodge, look out, we're coming. This is in fact, I just took my niece and nephew to Grapevine, to Great Wolf Lodge over spring break, and I told them both, we will never be coming back here, because we're going to have an incredible resort right here in Oklahoma City. We also have a wonderful partnership with the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum. We are, I don't know whether you realize, but in 2026, that will be the anniversary of Route 66. It will be also America 250. We're getting ready for World Cup. So there's all these things that are going to bring all of these visitors to the state. And so we are getting ready, and we have partnership deals with the Cowboy right now, and we intend on doing that with several of our other peers. I would encourage you to pull out your cameras right now and take a moment to click on this QR code. This will sign you up for our newsletter. Right now, we have loading into our building IPX, which is the Indigenous Comic-Con. We are going to have movie stars and comic and pop culture, icons all over our campus for the entire weekend. So we're doing really incredible and fun contemporary events. And so if you sign up, that is how you will stay in the know, and you can follow us on social media. So with that, I will stop and entertain any kind of questions or feedback that you might have, and then of course I'll turn it over to you for your part. But I just want to thank you so much. Oh, I do want to share something with you that's relevant to you here. On the way up here, our owner's representative for the museum was ADG Blatt, and Julie Blatt is from OSU. We are getting ready to be bestowed the OSU College of Engineering and Architecture and Technology is awarding us with the DEI Community Impact Award on April 23rd, and they will be recognizing Gina Timberman, who was our very first director at the museum, who is an OSU alum. They will be recognizing Julie Blatt, and I think there is one other individual associated with our project. So great connectivity with your community here. We appreciate that. And something else we're doing, I don't know whether you were familiar with a world-renowned artist by the name of Ben Harjo, who was an OSU alum, and you are doing an exhibit on campus of his work, and we are working with your community because we are producing a book, I think, kind of partnering with OSU on some of the photography of Ben Harjo's work. So lots of connectivity between Stillwater, OSU, and this community. And so we want you to know this is your home away from home. We invite you all to come and spend some time with us. And on that, I will entertain any questions or, yes.
So first question is not for you, but for the audience. How many of you actually been to this place?
Oh,
All right,
I love
great.
seeing that.
So if you have not, and if you have, it's not a 1 hour tour. Go and spend a day or go several times and see all of it. Kevin and I were both there the same night, and we walked away like, wow, this is pretty incredible. Wish we had 3 or 4 more hours to spend there. You agree? All right. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, you need to tell them about that fabulous restaurant that's there, because it's worth going to eat there.
Well, thank you. I'll pay you on the side. Yeah, so we have a restaurant called 39. It features indigenous cuisine with a modern fare. It's not Indian tacos. It's really looking. I love the trivia with the ingredients because that's what it's doing. It's focusing on indigenous ingredients on this continent and how native peoples were eating. So it's a very healthy menu. Because if you're gluten-free, this is the place. Vegetarian, because it's really looking at our diets, and of course with a modern fare. Now you can get a piece of fry bread and have it with the hummus, which, by the way, you think of hummus and you think that as being a Mediterranean dish, but we're using white beans that are indigenous to this continent and to our tribes. Yes.
So the Gilcrease Museum and Philbrook in Tulsa have a rather extensive collection of Native American art, costumes, pottery, etc., particularly the Gilcrease. So I'm wondering, have you attempted a partnership with either one of those two institutions, like you have with the Smithsonian, to maybe take on loan some of it is rather extensive, the Gilcrease, as you probably know.
Well, you bring up a really interesting point. When we began this museum 30 years ago, by the way, I asked Governor Anatubby, who has been the chairman of our board of directors for all these many years, why did we begin a museum without a collection? And he answered, because we had stories that needed to be told that could not wait on a collection. So when we actually created the museum experience, we actually worked on loan agreements with many institutions, including those that you just mentioned. There isn't right now in the works any long-term big project like you might be thinking. The Smithsonian exhibit, it's a 10-year loan, so we're still, we're only 3 years into that, so we still have a long time for that to come to fruition. But we are great partners with one another. We're very different than the tribal museums. Like if you've been to Chickasaw Cultural Center or the Cherokee Cultural Center, they do a deep dive on that particular tribe and their history. Nobody can do that better than them. We are a kind of an orientation experience, if you will, because we're sharing the common circumstances and differences of the collective tribes, the 39 tribes that are in Oklahoma today. And so what we do is we offer the opportunity to kind of get that broader view. This is a national story because you saw where all of those tribes were coming from. We are connected continuously to this day with our homeland. So this is a national story that we're looking at through a regional lens. But we are the perfect opportunity to hub and spoke out to the Gilcrease, to the Philbrook. So we have lots of partnership kinds of opportunities, but no long-term loan like you might be thinking. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.